This is Mac OS Ken.
Easier iPhone repair brought to you by the EU. More new Glowtime features and more new Glowtime feedback. It is Thursday, the 12th of September, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSCan. News of an EU-inspired change for the iPhone 16 line that everyone might appreciate. Apple maybe not included. A piece from Mac Rumor says Apple's internal design changes that improve thermal regulation in the iPhone 16 models also have the added benefit of making the battery easier to access for service, a feature that will help Apple comply with European regulations. Apple actually mentions the easier battery service in its iPhone 16 press release, though it didn't credit the EU for that. One has to assume that did play a part in the design changes, though. The report says the European Union is requiring smartphone manufacturers to make sure batteries can be replaced by users with easily accessible tools by June of 2025. Earlier this year, a piece from The Information indicated that the adhesive Apple uses for the battery would also need to be easier to deal with. One imagines teardowns from the likes of iFixit, likely to hit a day or two after the iPhone 16's release, will give us a clearer idea of how easy such service will be. Also worth noting, as the Mac Rumors piece does, the mention of easier battery service is only in the press release for iPhone 16. No such mention is made in the iPhone 16 Pro release, leaving one to wonder whether the Pro end will see similar changes. There were a lot of features and services announced during Monday's Glowtime event to which we have not gotten here. Let's get to them. iOS 18 will be bringing expanded satellite service to a couple of countries. Another piece from Mac Rumor says iOS 18 will bring messages via satellite to the US and Canada. Originally announced as a US-only feature during WWDC, the piece says the feature allows users to send and receive end-to-end encrypted texts, emojis, and even tapbacks through iMessages and SMS when they're outside cellular and Wi-Fi coverage. While Canada is getting satellite messaging, the UK will welcome roadside assistance via satellite. Coming through a partnership with Green Flag, one of the leading roadside assistance providers in the UK, the report says users there will be able to access these services on a pay-per-use basis if they are not already members of Green Flag or other participating providers. Like other satellite services from Apple, roadside assistance is designed for use in open spaces with a clear line of sight to the sky, meaning performance could be affected by obstacles such as dense tree cover or buildings. On top of all of that, Mac Rumor says iOS 18 will introduce emergency SOS live video. This feature will allow users to share a live video feed or photos with participating emergency dispatchers during an emergency call, providing responders with real-time visuals to help assess the situation more effectively. There's an AI Apple Intelligence feature that's apparently for the iPhone 16 line only. TechCrunch, The Verge, and Tom's Guide all have articles on a new feature called Visual Intelligence. Said to be similar to Google Lens on Android, TechCrunch says the feature is basically a reverse image search combined with some text recognition. Considering possible use cases, Tom's Guide says there are as many use cases as there are types of things to look at. Could be used to get the history of a building, find a review of a book, or even get a link to buy that bike. It is an impressive and logical feature to be built into the iPhone 16. And apparently iPhone 16 only. Well, iPhone 16 whatever and ever after. While The Verge refers to visual intelligence as an iOS 18 feature, Apple and all of the articles on the feature refer specifically to iPhone 16. Each has visual intelligence triggered by the phone's new camera control. For the audio nerds among us, there's a fun feature coming to Apple's voice Memos app. Engadget had the company showing off a simple multi-track recording feature for the app during Monday's Glowtime event. Describing it, the piece says the demo showed a guitar player laying down a progression and then simply singing on top of it. Looks like the magic stops at 2 tracks, but there's a simple editing interface that allows for adjustments to each layer. Perhaps the coolest part? It somehow conquers the feedback issue. The piece points out that the person laying down tracks in the demo was not wearing headphones or earbuds of any kind. Built into iOS 18, this looks to be another feature exclusive to iPhone 16 and later. While Apple doesn't seem to have said that explicitly, Engadget figures it's the new microphone array in Apple's newest phones that make the feature function. Is that everything? It is not. Another piece from Mac Rumors says Apple has shared a list of over 250 new features and changes coming with iOS 18. That piece actually calls it a full list, though I could find neither visual intelligence nor multi-track voice memo recording on it. Lots of features listed, though. Like, over 250 of them. No, I'm not going to list them all here. If over 250 new features aren't enough to get you on the iOS train, or your IT department just hasn't given the green light yet, you will still be able to keep secure without an OS update. Well, without iOS 18. As it did last year, 9to5Mac says Apple will give users the option to stay on iOS 17 while still receiving security patches. Now, upon first hearing that, one might think, well, they always do that. But not exactly. If you've got an iPhone that can't get the latest OS, Apple will still make some security fixes available. This news is for people whose phones can make the jump, but are used by people who cannot or will not for whatever reason. Along with the release of iOS 18.0 release candidate to the public last Monday, 9to5Mac says the company also released a new iOS 17.7 release candidate for developers and public beta testers. The update doesn't seem to add any new features, but it does bring security patches and bug fixes to iOS 17. The site expects that to be released along with the rest of Apple's upcoming operating systems next Monday. From folks who won't go to iOS 18 to folks who can't get past iOS 18 soon enough. Yet another piece from Mac Rumors had Apple releasing iOS 18.1 Beta 3 on Wednesday. If you thought Apple did that last month, Apple did. The one released yesterday is specifically for iPhone 16 models. Those go up for order tomorrow. They'll be in stores and out to consumers 1 week from tomorrow. More reactions to Apple's Glowtime event, and one to Huawei's Mate XT as well. Let's start with that one. Longtime listener Nabil posted to the show's YouTube channel saying, "As someone who uses a folding phone as my daily driver, once they work out the fragility issues, this is so clearly the future of mobile computing. I have a Galaxy Z Fold 4, and between Samsung's excellent multitasking and the big screen, it is literally like a pocket computer. Unfortunately," he says, "Samsung sucks as a company. When I had an in-warranty failure, they never fixed it correctly, and the water resistance of the phone is now seemingly permanently gone. Considering the phone cost $3,000 Canadian, about $2,200 US for the high-end 1TB model, I am not happy. Apple would have repaired it correctly and on the first try, unlike Samsung's 3 tries to still not get it right. But the multitasking and folding phone are so good, he continues, that in spite of this, I don't think I can switch back. Not a happy customer, though. If Apple ever opens up iOS to third-party apps and sideloading, as well as fixes iOS's horrible multitasking, and adds a folding phone to the lineup, I'll be back. Unfortunately, that is looking doubtful. As for Apple's announcements, Steve wrote to say, another listener mentioned that watchOS 10 would be compelling if it had the blood oxygen sensor. I agree, and I understand that Apple is in the middle of a patent dispute, so they can't offer it now. He goes on to say, my take is, if Apple told us that the hardware needed to make the blood oxygen measurement was in the watch already, and that once the dispute was resolved, hopefully soon, it would only take a software change to activate it, effectively flipping a virtual switch, then I would get the Watch 10. Otherwise, I'm on the same page as your other listener. I will probably stick with my Series 6 watch. I gotta say, if I didn't rely on that and I was in the market for a new Apple Watch, I'd probably just buy one on faith. We don't know for certain that the hardware is in there to turn on the feature again when or if Apple settles the suit or prevails, but it's tough to see Apple removing it. At the same time, I'm not sure Apple could advertise that it is there to turn on while there's litigation ongoing. Or maybe Apple did remove the components. Bummed for the people who are bummed, and glad it's not an issue for me this go-round. Oh, and somebody dialed in with feedback.
Hey, Ken. This is Matt in California. Listened to this morning a little bit of a roundup of the Glowtime, and yeah, it was very ho-hum for me. I watched the whole thing and I was bored with a great description, because that's kind of how I felt. None of it was incredibly impressive. It was all nothing seemed worth upgrading. However, I love my AirPods 2 and the new AirPods, not Pro, but the AirPods with the noise canceling. I may actually try those. And as somebody that has suffered with hearing loss for nearly the last decade, the hearing aid on the Pros do sound compelling, although I'm not sure people are going to want to wear those as hearing aids, but maybe it's a gateway drug. Maybe for me, I can get some, and they'll be a gateway drug to actually exploring that. But also I wondered about places where it's not appropriate or you're not allowed to, thinking like at bar trivia where you're not supposed to keep your AirPods in or have your phones out, or even, be playing with your smartwatch. But in there, and I could just say, they're my hearing aids, and then casually asking questions of SIRI. But I would never do that because I'm a rule follower. Anyway, that's my quick take. Thanks, Ken. You rock.
Thank you, Matthew. You also rock. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSCan. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.